All right, so for today's board, we have the whole team here. It's exciting with Christy and Jarrell. For those of you who haven't seen them in the flesh, here you go. So today we're going to talk about, well, it's the first part to a two-part series of videos around turnover, especially marketing operations. So we did a survey last year to different marketing operations people, and we wanted to answer the question of why there was such high turnover in this role, and we see it, run pretty rampant recently, and we think that there's a few reasons why people are turning over, and I think employers probably are gathering some of that when people are leaving, but we wanted to focus on the other hand of making the case for why marketing ops people should stay in their role. Because, the average lifetime of someone in a marketing ops role, it feels like, I don't know, like
it's
a year.
Less than a year.
Well, I think in our survey it was 3 companies in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little over a year.
But we do think there's benefit, to staying in a role longer than a year. And so for those of you who are thinking of whether they should stay in their role or not, maybe this could, sway you differently. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's quite obvious what the reasons are to leave, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to present a counter argument to get people to think about why they should stay, maybe reasons that they might not be thinking about, especially if they've been bouncing quite a lot. And do you want me to just kick off the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the one thing that we've noticed, and both you and I have worked in a few places as well, so we're, I guess might be not the wrong term, guilty of this, but we've moved around too, but it's really being able to see things through. So a lot of the time when you start a company, there's a lot of new things that you'll add into that company, a lot of new tools, a lot of new processes, a lot of new kind of aspects that you're going to bring to the marketing operations function. And it takes a long time to really figure out and really see what's going to happen, how all those things materialize, and how once you've released it into the real world, what ends up happening. And if you leave within a year, then you're always just in that building mode, and you're never in that evaluation mode to really tell if things are really how they really worked long term. And I think Christy had a really good video the other day about overcomplicating things, and you're never going to know if what you built is right for the long term success of that project. And so if you leave and you go do it again, you're not going to really figure out. So to really understand and learn what works and what doesn't work, especially long term, you really need to stick around for a bit longer than a year and then evaluate things and have that analysis.
And I think a lot of times, every new person that comes in kind of wants to bring their own ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And so those new ideas are implemented, and then they're never thought through, and then a new person comes in, brings their new ideas. So they're never it's never consistent and sticking with one thing.
Right. And for the company, that's really difficult for all the other people who are staying around for a bit longer, because they just get pulled in different directions every year when the new person wants to stamp their thoughts and their experiences onto that operations function.
Yeah.
But then for the person as well, again, it's really hard for you to be able to talk eloquently about your opinions on why you should be doing that if you haven't in the past seen that through.
Totally. Yeah, and I think to tag on to that, one of the things that we talked about, and maybe some of us have seen before, but the grass isn't always greener, at another role. So a lot of the times the common issues that we're dealing with in marketing ops, like the next organization you move to, are going to have those same problems. So if you feel like you're frustrated or you can't get things done, I think the biggest thing is to figure out what those are and if they can be addressed. So like working with your manager or leadership, because the company will benefit from that. but you might also just be leaving those problems and going to a new place with those problems again. So, and starting a new job, although is exciting, it's hard. Like you said, you're in building mode the whole time. So if you have your like known evil, your known set of problems, and then you're tackling that and trying to fix them, that is, proactive. And we know that a lot of time working ops people will also then go to a new role for maybe a bump in pay. It's like, well, then that kind of gives you the case to warrant why you should even, maybe get a promotion or a pay rise, because you're really trying to improve things for the company, right?
And that just made me think, because I think a lot of the times people in a MOPS role, they get a bit undervalued by the wider team. And that's one of the reasons why maybe they move on.
Yeah, for sure.
So then if they maybe have spent a year building, getting everyone on board, raising their stock within the company, raising, the value of marketing operations in the company, and people are starting to see the value, then they leave. They now go to the other company, they go start from the beginning again in a lot of cases. So you're just getting to the point where people potentially are starting to see the value in what you're doing, and you can start really pushing forward the MOPS function, and then you have to start from the beginning again.
Yeah, I was thinking the longer you stay somewhere too, the more like indisposable you become, because you turn out, like, once you are building all those things, see them through, you're the go-to person for everyone to ask questions to.
Like that trusted advisor.
Yeah,
pretty much for the team.
For sure. Yeah, I think that especially in MOPS, where documentation can be a little bit lacking sometimes, and things can be quite complicated, and there's a lot of knowledge that's just up here. If you're that go-to person, you leave for the company, it's a big drain, because now they've lost all of that knowledge.
And we've seen that a lot.
Yeah, and then they have to bring in an agency to really have that knowledge bank consistent. But for the person, you've really gathered. I mean, it takes a while to understand all of the tools, all the instances, and everything. You've gathered, and we go to a new job. Sometimes it takes you a few months really just to get a good idea of everything that's going on, all the people you need to work with, all the tools, all the processes, and the company strategy and the direction and everything. And again, like, you've got all that under wraps, and then you go,
Yeah. And I feel like this is kind of a side thing, but also we talked about investment in a company as one of the benefits for working in-house. So we talked about working agency versus working in-house, and a lot of us are working at startups, and one of the biggest payoffs with working in a startup for your hard work is, whether that company does well and goes public, or your actual investment to that company would pay off, because the more time you're able to invest to your shares or whatever you have, you're going to be rewarded for that. But if you're just leaving after a year, one, you don't get to see those great milestones for that company, which is a huge bonus for working in-house. And then two, you don't get the financial benefit because you're not investing a lot of your stock. So that's a tough one, because it is like gambling. You never know what's going to happen to the company, but it is an exciting moment. I've had times where I left right before a company went public, and it was hard for me, because I was like, oh, I wish I was there, because you're part of building that and seeing that exciting thing. But just financially, it could be rewarding as well, which you're not thinking about because it's not tangible, like maybe the bump in your salary that you're about to get.
And even on the other side of that, I know we tend to have a selfish tendency when we feel like we want to move around and it's time for us to go. We don't realize that there's people that also are there that really can learn from us, that we can teach and make an impact on them versus just the company overall. And I think a lot of times we don't really think about that. And even when we leave, to you guys' point, we leave with the person that leaves with the knowledge too. The things that they built. A lot of times documentation isn't put in place, before, or at a greater scale that it should have been, to where people who after that person leaves can actually continue to keep things going. So I mean, thinking about that, if you do plan on leaving, try to think from a mindset of how many people I'm impacting when I leave, and how can I not how can I make things easier for that transition, not just for myself, but for other people?
That's an interesting point, actually. I wonder if there's a study out there, or if people can just kind of just think about it, where the more people that are staying longer, does that mean that other people stay longer?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because like if you end up staying longer, does that mean other people will want to stay longer, and then you're all getting better together? You're learning from each other, you have that knowledge, you've got those connections built over a year. It takes a long time for people to really trust each other.
Yeah.
And then if you're all staying longer, that could be a really kick-ass team that you've got established, instead of everyone just being new to each other, trying to learn each other the whole time.
Well, I always say like the math. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, especially if you're a pretty influential person running on the team, it's like, oh, such and such is gone.
Oh
yeah.
And then everyone starts.
Yeah.
Well, they have like the mass exodus, like that's what they say. They're like, oh, there's mass exodus, and it's like everyone, like one person left, and then everyone kind of left after that. But I think that brings up a good point around relationships too. Like, the times where I've spent like longer in roles, or I think about the clients I've had over a long period of time, you just are able to build relationships with them that are just, rare to find. And it's like, so easy to work with them. You know each other in and out, you know how they're thinking. And I feel like that's special. It kind of makes you want to go into work with, you're going to be working with your friends basically at that point. And so that's also, I think, a good way. It's not an obvious reason to stay, and it shouldn't be one of the main decisions, but I think there's something to say about that. And
So then we've talked about why you should stay, because if things are crazy, things might also be crazy at the next place. But then I guess one of the reasons why a lot of people end up leaving is they think they can progress in their career quicker, because a lot of the time the company that you're at is a bit slower to promote you than another company trying to attract talent, especially when they're kind of offering titles and things like that, that maybe the current company isn't, and then also a jump in pay. So if you're someone who is in that position, it's difficult, right? Because you believe maybe you deserve that next step, but the company hasn't recognized it yet. How can you go about, but you want to stay, like you're listening to this right now and you think, oh, I do want to stay for all of these reasons, they're really great reasons, but I'm not going to be, moving up as fast as I want. Like how do you manage that, do you think?
I think people don't ask. For one, I don't think they express that to their managers and say, I don't feel valued, I want a higher title or pay. And I think that's like step one, because a lot of times probably the manager doesn't even realize you feel that way and wants to know that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think the best way to go about that isn't just saying, I think I deserve it, right? It's more,
prove
I know
reasons.
You weren't saying that, but it's more just like, one, proving it, but also being really clear with yourself and the company and your manager on what you want. So if you're a manager and you want to be a director, you say, okay, I want to be a director in X amount of time. What do I need to do to achieve that?
Yeah.
Is that a possibility? I want to be a director in 2 years. What do I need to achieve? What do I need to demonstrate to show that I have these skills? What are the milestones over the next 24 months that I need to achieve to get there? And and even come up with some, right? You could say, if I want to become a director and I'm a manager, these are the things I'm willing to give up this, make sure I achieve this. What else can I do to make sure I get there? Speak to HR, speak to your manager, and then create that plan.
Totally. And I think that if you feel like, I think to your point, if you feel kind of uncomfortable having that conversation, or you feel like asking for it is just not in your personality. I know for a lot of us, we feel like someone should recognize I'm doing great work and just reward me for it. And it's like, well, that isn't always how it works, because there's just so many levels. Like your boss has a boss, right? And they're usually approving how much budget they have or what promotions they can give out. So,
but also your boss is probably thinking about this for themselves too.
Exactly. And so you do. If you think about it, one, they're going to have sympathy. Like, they're going to understand, oh, okay, yeah, totally. And if you're clear on, like you said, like you're making it goal based, and then maybe even thinking outside the box and saying, hey, like, I'm even thinking maybe we can have some type of, bonus structure. Like maybe I can get measured on these things, and if I make that, then I can get, comp for it. Because it's not just, you're giving me my salary. I actually have a tangible thing I need to work toward, and then I'll get rewarded for that. Because I think in marketing ops, that is not usually something that happens. We're not usually bonus. Like usually our peers are around in demand gen, who usually has a goal tied to them, or in sales. And that's always been really frustrating.
But it's totally possible.
But it's totally possible. Yeah, you can have goals for the company that you can work toward. And you should be rewarded, I think, for that. Because you do have a lot of what marketing ops does can be tied to revenue. It's like a lot of those programs that demand gen was doing couldn't probably happen unless marketing ops touched it. So
and they don't only have to have some numerical revenue goal.
Yeah.
They can have other goals, like any of the strategic priorities for marketing operations, achieve this implementation, or increase our efficiency with this process, or make sure that we redo our lead scoring and improve our MQL conversion rate. I mean, that would be a numerical thing. I mean, there's so many ways that you could create a framework to have some kind of financial incentive there, which can give you that bump in pay maybe that you're looking for. And then the title side of things, that's where you can work with your manager to develop that plan. And if you go to your manager and they're not interested to help you make that plan, then I mean, that's probably a good sign that maybe it might not be the right long-term thing for you. But I wouldn't just give up then. You got to nurture that, right? Because they're very busy too, and they've probably got a lot of priorities, and your improvement and path through your career is one of their priorities, but they've got a lot of other things you need to think about. So you really need to work on them and not just give up if they just don't create this plan for you on day one.
Yeah, these are things that we as marketing ops professionals need to think about, but it's also, I think, the responsibility of the manager to, if they want someone to stay longer, to think about these things, which I think we're going to talk about in another part.
That's going to be part 2 for sure.
Part 2.
And the manager definitely has a lot of responsibility, but there's still a hell of a lot of responsibility on the individual too, right? Like they need to be super clear. Like if you want something, you have to just get over the awkwardness of saying it, right? You need to just say what you want, and understand that you're going to have to work for it, and agree on a plan to get there.
Yeah, and this is kind of my question. This made me think, because we're talking about a lot of fiscal, rewarding. But this is my question to everyone, because I feel like there's also things about a job where you're more willing to stay in that job outside of monetary value. Like for some of us, that for me, if I was working in house, it would maybe be more of a flexible work from home situation. So if I was able to pick a few days work from home, especially now as a mom and being sympathetic toward mom in the workplace, commuting every day can be hard, or having to do pick up and drop off, having more flexible hours even if you are going into the office. So that can be some level of negotiation too. And I don't think that's saying I'm going to do less of my job, so you can pay me less. It's more just I get that benefit. I don't know if you guys have any other thing.
And that comfort.
Yeah.
No, that's a huge benefit for me, working from home. I would much rather have this job where I can work from home versus going to say, I don't know, an Amazon or a Google and get paid a lot more, but don't have that flexibility.
Yeah, and again, being clear about what you want is key there, right? If you want to work from home, you've got to ask for it. You've got to be able to say, okay, well maybe I'll do it once a month or something, and then prove to you. And maybe after I've done it that day, I can do it once a week, and then prove that I'm working. And then there's that side of it, which is the balance with work and life. But there's also the asking for what you want in terms of not just title and money, but what you're doing day to day. And I think we talked about that on one of the podcasts or one of the videos before around everyone in MOPS always wants to be working on bigger projects, more strategic, less just repetitive execution. And if you find yourself thinking, oh, I'm just stuck in this execution world and I can't get out of it, I want to leave, that is partly the company's fault, but a lot of it is due to you, right? Because you need to be clear about what your goals are for your growth and development within your current title and role. And there's tons of ways that you can try and push this forward, but you need to understand how much are you working on stuff you want to work on versus what you're not. Track your time, log it, figure out what percentage you're working on the stuff that you want to be working on. Take that back to your manager and be like, okay, well, right now I'm only really doing 20% of my time on strategic and 80% on execution. Wouldn't you prefer, if I was working a lot, like 50% or 50-50 or 70-30? Maybe let's create a plan for me to get there, work with me to be able to give me the permission or the authority to say no to some of these execution requests so I can work on these bigger projects.
And that could flag some things that are taking up a lot of your time that aren't like focused on company goals at all. Like you're like, I'm spending X amount of time per week working on this one task, when really they're like, why are you spending that much time on that? That isn't something we should focus on. Yeah.
Right. And then those last minute requests that you get in and you feel like you have to do, and you're just bogged down by all of this stuff, and it's stressful, and people are messaging you at 10 p.m. saying we'll get this email out tomorrow and all of that kind of stuff. And again, marketing ops, we like to please and we like to do it and we like to make sure that we're supporting the rest of the team, but you have to be clear with your manager, this isn't working for me, you know, and how can I change this? Don't just be like, no, I'm not going to do it tomorrow and surprise everyone. You need to create a plan yourself with your manager to be able to work your way out of that.
Yeah, or like make the case for anything. So I've even helped some of my friends or peers with even presentations on, how to ask for more headcount. You know, like, what are the benefits of having that? Or how do I get additional resources? What are the benefits of that? And I think if you come with a strong argument and you can show that it would be worthwhile, that can be a huge case for it, and they can't really say no. You can convince them. If you went through all those steps to try and get what you want or what you know is going to make you happy, and it works out, that's a great way to stay. If not, then at least you tried, and then maybe there is another, opportunity out there. So.
Yeah, a common theme I'm hearing in all these reasons is just like being proactive and not just sitting by and waiting for something to happen and thinking going to a new job is the only way to get out of it.
For sure.
And I was going to say, and another strong argument that I think, or one strong argument that I think will probably be 100%, close to 100% successful is just presenting how, the marketing could improve their relationship with sales. So maybe coming up with a strategy like ABM strategy is probably like the best strategy you can have to bridge sales and marketing and improve that relationship.
Even I say working cross-functionally, it's just like a huge step. So if you're able to say okay, well, I'm going to help work with different departments, because it feels like a lot of the other departments in marketing don't have the time to do that, and they're not on a roll to do that. But marketing ops can. And the thing with sales and marketing is just the lack of trust, or a lack of communication. And so if you're someone that can help lead that, which not a lot of people want to do, don't have the time to do, but it's just super important, that is very valuable. And
I think going back to, these are a lot of reasons why, or how you can improve your job to then stay. But I think that's a really good point in why you will benefit by staying. So sales and marketing, there's sometimes the distrust there, and there is the lack of alignment. It takes a long time to build that alignment, and if it's not there when you join, in a lot of cases it isn't, and maybe you're the change agent there to try and bring those two teams together through a strategy like ABM, or with a close relationship with MOPS to SOPS, creating a revenue operations team. It will take a while to develop that, and there's so much you can learn once you've got that going. And if you leave before that trust and everything is established, then you've kind of done the company a bit of a disservice, but also yourself, because you've never been able to really see what happens when there's good alignment.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you can talk about alignment all day because you read and you learnt about it, but until you've actually felt it and you've created it, and then you've seen the benefits from it long term, it's very difficult to really take that to your next company and say, this is what happened when we spent a year developing this ABM strategy and this alignment. This is what happened to our revenue, conversion rates, all of the optimization that we can create through that. And then you can, every time in your career, especially as you go up and maybe one day you're a CMO, you can really get people on board to create that alignment because you felt it and you experienced it.
Yeah. I think also like winning fans at your different roles within an organization can only help you in the long run with your career. So you might find that you can switch from job to job and get title bumps, but at some point you might plateau because everyone's going to compare your expertise versus your role, and you're going to need references for that. And I feel like what's even better is everyone kind of moves on to potentially different roles, and when you have those champions that can speak to how well you did within your organization, that's going to help you one day when you're trying to find a new role that really suits you, and you can have a great reference. Or they might even be working at that hot new startup that you actually want to work on, and you have it in there, someone that can vouch for you and say like you're great. Or they might even come to you with opportunities, and those I feel like are a better fit than a recruiter coming to you with an opportunity, because they actually know, okay, this is a good role for Jarrell or Christy, like this suits them,
Right.
This suits Charlie, and that's going to be even more successful jump for your career than the one that's just laid out to you on a platter.
It's a small world. And wouldn't you rather have, a dozen really deep, long-term relationships with people that are going to really support you through your career, or 100 people that I worked with him or her for a year and he was pretty good, yeah, but we didn't really,
It's not long enough to make an impact.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So we're coming up to about half an hour on this, so
Yeah.
but that's
Part one.
That's good. Yeah, I think covered a lot there, and then the next version of this is going to be for leaders, because again, both sides benefit from a long-term relationship, and leaders almost more so, which is why it's so important for them to be able to create that environment that people want to stay in. So stay tuned for
Part two.
part 2 of this topic.